Oh, very good. Okay, everyone, we'd like to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your attendance on today's meeting. It's a special work commission meeting, and the reason that is a lot of times we don't have a meeting during this time because we're back at a NACO conference. But because Washington, D.C. is completely dysfunctional, we felt like that'd be a waste of taxpayers' money to go back there and advocate for anything, and especially since they require all kinds of paperwork to even buy a sandwich. So anyway, with that, we'd like to go ahead and get started. Our invocation will be given by Tim Martin from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and also the Interfaith Council.
Yes, I do want to put in a plug for the Interfaith Council. We're 13 years. We just had our last month, our change of command, and the president serves for 3 years. So to remind everybody, our first president was Reverend Dr. Ralph Klingen from the Presbyterian Church, then Pastor Jimmy Keston from Solomon's Porch, and then Pastor Joe Doherty from New Promise Lutheran. Rabbi Helene Einbinder just finished her term as our president from Beit Shavarim, the Jewish community of Greater Zion, and Carol Drake from St. George Catholic Church is now the president, and the vice president is Pastor Arthur Drayman from Our Savior's Evangelical Lutheran Church right out on just off of the Brigham Road Circle. So I think that the diversity of the leadership, says a lot about the community. 13 years and alive and well.
Oh,
it's just a great opportunity. Thank you for inviting us to offer the prayer. If you'll all join with me, please. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful this day to live in this community. We're thankful for the blessings that we receive. We pray this day for rain, for moisture in our land that is so much needed, that we might have the normal course of events. We're thankful for the beauty that we enjoy in this part of thy vineyard. We pray that we can be mindful of the beautiful sunsets that we have and the beauty of the land. We're thankful this day that we can hold this meeting and that we can discuss those things that are important. We pray for a blessing upon those who will be called to serve on the various councils and committees here in the county, and pray that thou might inspire all those who participate in this meeting, that they can feel thy inspiration, they can feel thy guidance in the things they say and the decisions that are made. We are thankful for those who serve, especially those who give of their time freely. We ask a blessing upon all who are here, participate this day, and this we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. We'll now have our Pledge of Allegiance by Jonathan Little, who is commander in the Navy Reserves. And I believe that Tim Martin is also retired Navy.
Yeah.
So
submarine officer.
Navy makes good peoples.
There's two kinds of ships in the Navy, right? Submarines and targets. So.
If you'll please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Jonathan is also our HR director here at the county. Our regular agenda items, yes. Starting with item 1, I guess we don't have a consent agenda. Got kind of confused there for a second. Ray, with our purchase requests. And just so you know, we have a few items, and then we'll get into our work meeting on Cafos. So.
I just brought one with me today. It's for emergency services. This is coming out of grant funds. It's radiation detectors. This is to be dispersed to regional hazmat teams and bomb squads. And it's a total of $54,050. That's all I have.
Very good.
How do they use them? Kind of like.
I don't really want to know. I don't want to be involved in that.
You gotta have a suit, dude, don't you, Jason?
Well, they're not that big, and they're not designed for that, to give you that kind of information.
Okay.
It would give hazmat teams basic information on whether they need to call in more advanced equipment. So. Very good.
Thank you. Well, there's a good number of them. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the purchase request that Ray has explained to us.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second on the purchase request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 2 is our emergency service report. We do have a summary in our packet. I'm not sure we have anyone that was going to speak to that, right, Cheyenne? So I guess we'll just go ahead and, it's not an action item, but the Sheriff Brooksby has made a report for us that we can just note. Item 3 is consideration of authorization of individuals to the Washington County's Public Treasury Investment Fund. David Whitehead, Treasurer Whitehead. So, yes, it has to do with authorizing chair, which is myself.
So I
be on
probably could help with that one just a little bit. So Brenda recently retired as the chief deputy for David Whitehead, and this would allow Salome to take Brenda's place so that the different functions that she was responsible for could continue forth.
Oh, very good. All right, very good.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the authorization for the individual to manage Washington County's Public Treasurer's Investment Fund account.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 4 is consideration of proclamation number 2022-19, a proclamation celebrating Black History Month. Commissioner Almquist, and we also have Devin in the back.
Well, certainly, if you watch any news or you know of any history, it's the U.S. has obviously celebrated first Black History Week and then now Black History Month. Chair, would you like me to read this? It's a short resolution, or?
Yes.
Okay. This is proclamation number 2022-19, a proclamation celebrating Black History Month. Whereas historian Carter G. Woodson started Black History Week almost 100 years ago, whereas at first, Black History Week was celebrated in the second week of February, which also includes the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Whereas in 1976, the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded to Black History Month. And since then, U.S. presidents, including President Biden, have proclaimed February as National Black History Month. Whereas the county supports the vision and the goals advocated by Utah historian Dr. Ronald G. Coleman, who stated that an improved racial climate in Utah for African Americans and other people of color will depend on increased tolerance, respect for differences, and awareness of the need for inclusiveness in every facet of community life, unquote. Whereas the county applauds and supports organizations in the county, including Dixie State University, that actively promote cultural diversity by inviting and welcoming Black residents and guests in Washington County. Whereas the county strongly supports continued efforts to confront racism in the United States and in the state of Utah, and to work toward a society that lives up to this nation's democratic ideals. And whereas the county encourages everyone to learn about Black history and to appreciate its role as part of the nation's history. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the County Commissioners of Washington County, Utah, that February is Black History Month in Washington County, and the county encourages all residents and guests to celebrate and observe Black History Month. That is the proclamation.
Devin, did you want to say anything?
I'd like to have you come up, Devin.
Yeah.
You
Devin,
help.
what's your last name?
Osborne.
Osborne. Because to most of us, you're just Devin. You're like Cher. You only need one name, you know.
Tell us also of some of the events in the community.
Yeah, so I'm Devin Osborne. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I play football at the university as well. I'm a senior, well, graduate senior in a way. But we got a proclamation a couple weeks back with the city of St. George, with Mayor Randall, David Cordero, and the whole city council, and I thought it was a good idea to bring it to the county and put it on the county level. And me and Mr. Almquist sat down and had a good conversation last week, and you know, kind of brought this up to form, and he he did a great job doing all the wording, all the stuff, I can't really do yet. But that was a great opportunity, and what we're trying to do in this community, because I came here about 5 years ago in July of 2017 when, it wasn't as popping as it is now in ways. But I'm very thankful for this opportunity that you guys did, and hopefully we can continue on with this, bringing diversity into Washington County for people like myself and people that don't look like me as well. And I'm also, we're doing a big Black History Month gala on February 24th at 7 p.m. at the university in the Gardner Center. We're doing some other events, like tonight we're doing a big poetry slam at the Gardner Center at the university. And then hopefully we're trying to form a diversity committee for the whole county so we can, promote diversity in front of this community. So people like myself, my teammates, all the way around, all around the world can come and visit St. George and have the same expectations and same love and caring that I have for the community as well. So, but thank you guys so much for this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you. Very good. I think it's a good thing.
Well, that's my motion after having read it.
Mr. Chair, I'd second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 5 is consideration of resolution R-2022-2905, a resolution approving scholarship for the Ladies Professional Golf Association as Metra Tour at Copper Rock Championship. And Kevin or Brittany? Did I say that right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. That's why it sounded so weird.
right. Not quite as
smart.
tall as
Dyslexia kicking in there, and it
it's
just
good.
switched it around. The scholarship. I was like, why are we giving scholarships to them?
We knew what you meant.
Yes.
So this comes from a recommendation from the TAB board from January 27th. And this is actually just purchasing an advertising package with the Symetra Tour. So we get approximately 5 hours of advertising coverage while the tournament is going on. So we'll play our Greater Zion ads, golf focused, during that time. And we have ads on the Today Show, the Golf Channel, et cetera. So it's a pretty good sponsorship. We get a lot of advertising for the dollars. So
Would it
we
be okay
have
if we
this-
gave them a scholarship in place of a sponsorship?
That would be a different line item.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
so probably not that.
I move approval of item number 5 for resolution R 2022-2905.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 6 is consideration of resolution R-2022-2906, a resolution approving sponsorship of Professional Pickleball Association Red Rock Open.
So again, this is another recommendation from the Tourism Advisory Board from January. They're having a pro pickleball tournament April 6th through the 10th. There's about 250 pro players and then 1,200 to 1,500 just regular players, and then 7,000 spectators is what's anticipated. So it's got an economic impact number of over $3 million. So again, this is a marketing sponsorship that will allow us some screen time during the event.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve resolution number R-2022-2906, approving the sponsorship of the Professional Pickleball Association's Red Rock Open.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 7 is consideration of resolution R-2022-2907, a resolution approving TRT funding to St. George City for the Holiday Senior Softball Tournament.
And that title is not quite right. I'm sorry. That title should be Senior World Softball Western Nationals.
Oh,
So this is an item that went before the Tourism Advisory Board back in May of last year, but we hadn't put the resolution together until this year, just so that it would all be within the same year. So this is actually covering the field expense for the tournament. So it's March 22nd through the 27th, so about 6 days, and there's 213 teams, so it's a huge tournament.
That is a huge
So we'll be
tournament.
offsetting the cost of the fields for that tournament.
Senior Western.
Senior World Softball Western Nationals.
Okay,
Say that 10 times.
Seems to be a bit of an issue there, world, Western, and national.
Yeah,
no, there's no
There's
Western.
a lot of words
If it's
there.
world, doesn't that encompass everything,
Just
Brittany?
reading Senior World Softball Western Nationals.
Which
just-
hemisphere?
I just read what I'm told to read. right?
And it is the world.
It is
In
the
our
world. It's the whole world, but
Seems
the
to be a
west, just
catch-all,
the
Brittany.
western.
World.
Solar
Just
system.
put all the words in there, and then it's covered.
What about the eastern part of the world? Okay,
Not
anyway.
invited.
Yeah, they don't want to. Okay, do I have a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R-2022-2907, approving TRT funding to St. George City for the Holiday Senior World Softball Western Nationals Tournament.
You got it.
I did.
Do we still say tournament?
Of the Milky Way. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion
Aye.
passes. Yeah. Item 8, consideration of resolution R-2022-2908, a resolution appointing board members to the Ash Creek Special Service District Administrative Control Board. And Ash Creek is a special service district, and we appoint their board. And the names that we have before us, Nanette Billings and David Hershey from Hurricane, Kelly Wilson and Richard Hershey from Lavercan, and from Tokerville, we have Keen Ellsworth and Justin Sipp.
I move approval of resolution number R-2022-2908, appointing board members to the Ash Creek Special Service District Administrative Council Board. It's almost as long as the last one. And the names as read into the minutes.
I second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 9 is consideration of resolution R-2022-2909, a resolution appointing board members to the Administrative Control Board for the Solid Waste Special Service District Number 1. And Commissioner Olmquist is on for this, but I do believe that Devin has a comment to make as we...
Yes, just one note there. Craig Coates is currently serving on an unexpired term, so he should be removed from the resolution that's signed. But other than that, we're ready to go.
Well, Mr. Chair, let me read the names if that's okay.
Very good.
Blair Gubler of Lavercan, Ron Kundick of Leeds, Scott Pace of New Harmony, Denny Drake, Santa Clara, Suzanne Elger from Springdale, Michelle Randall, Mayor Michelle Randall, St. George, Natalie Larson, Councilmember St. George, Michelle Tanner, Councilmember St. George, Justin Sipp from Tokerville.
With an expiration date of December 31st, 2025.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that one.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
And Chair, for those listening and/or in the audience, board members that's B-O-A-R-D. Just clarification.
Yes. Item 10 is consideration of resolution R-2022-2910, a resolution to authorize Dameron Valley Fire Special Service District to purchase a rescue truck. And commissioners know, whenever I see anything up along SR 18, even though your name isn't on the agenda, I assume that you're going to speak to it.
You know, and I love to speak to that one. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn this one over to our esteemed counsel, Devin, though, who can explain what this is.
Sure, happy to do that. So back in November, the commission enacted a resolution expressing an intent to create a consolidated fire district up along the SR 18 corridor. And as part of that resolution, the county prohibited these affected districts from undertaking new debt while this consolidation process is being explored. But the intent of the commission was to allow the districts to continue to operate. Dameron Valley has a situation where one of their rescue trucks has a lease that's about to be up, and it's going to be a savings to the district ultimately to exercise an option to purchase that truck. So this resolution would authorize Dameron Valley SSD to take out a loan to purchase that truck.
Very good.
So with that explanation, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve resolution number R-2022-2910, authorizing Dameron Valley Fire Special Service District to purchase that rescue truck.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 11 is consideration of agreement for services between Washington County and Stir and Dirt Racing, LLC. Susie? And this threw us off because this was numbered item 10 in our packet, but
I'm
on our
sorry.
agenda, it's 11.
Number
It's not your
11.
fault. Don't
Yeah,
apologize.
so we're just asking and requesting the commissioners to approve a contract with Stir and Dirt. They've done our derby for the last 3 years. I think they've done a really great job. We're just asking for that contract to be renewed.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agreement for services with Washington County and Stern Dirt Racing.
Actually, I'm sorry, Commissioners. One quick change on paragraph 4, second sentence. We could change that to 65,000 in the signed version.
Yeah.
I like that even better. I'll amend
No.
my motion to
No.
reduce this.
So we're reducing the price?
So the second sentence says the remainder of, so under this contract, there's an initial payment of 10,000.
Oh, yes.
That's 60 days, it's due 60 days before the event. The remainder of, it should say 65,000 there, for a total
Thank
of
you.
75,000.
Thank you.
So I would move to approve the agreement for services between Washington County and Stern Dirt Racing as amended in paragraph 4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 13 is Washington County Art Contest Update. Nicole Felshaw.
Yeah, so our Washington County Parking Garage Art Contest recently closed, and I just want to let the 3 commissioners know that we received an overwhelming response. So many amazing submissions were put in, and the recommendation that I have today is originally we put in the documents that we were going to announce the winner today, but if we could just postpone that until March 1st to the next commission meeting, that would give us an opportunity to really vet each one and really determine what's the best fit for our parking garage area. So,
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, it's a high-quality problem to have when we get too many submissions to our art contest. That's awesome, so I move that we table this item until the March 1st meeting.
Second.
We have a motion to table this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
thank you.
Okay, now we're on to our work meeting, and that's why many of you are here. So, the way I think we'll do this is that we have Victoria Hells is going to kind of start with a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, we have many of our planning commissioners here as well that are going to be participating. So we'll kind of do this somewhat free flow as you have questions. Maybe raise your hand. We can talk about it. Some of those questions might be answered a little later in the PowerPoint, but then once we get through the PowerPoint, then we can kind of open it back up into a discussion as well. But feel free to kind of raise your hand if you do have questions as Victoria goes along with this. So.
We're going to get that queued up. We have already discussed this at Planning Commission. We wanted to represent it at a work meeting before the Joint Commission and Planning Commission and the public.
Yes.
So this is our an additional public meeting that we're having. So we're going to talk about Cafos and Afos. These are concentrated animal feeding operations and animal feeding operations. I'm not sure if it's CAFO or CAFO, just like I'm not sure if it's tomato or tomato. But I call it CAFO. A lot of other people pronounce it differently. All of these are defined in state law by the number of animals. So a large CAFO is, go ahead. Yeah, large CAFO is listed there, medium AFO, and a small AFO. Only the large ones are called CAFOs.
What number? It's 1,000 plus?
1,000 plus beef. That would also be 10,000 plus sheep, 2,500 swine if they're greater than 55 pounds, 10,000 swine if they're less than 55 pounds. That would be a large CAFO. So that just gives you, we're gonna go into each one of those definitions also in one of the next slides. Go ahead. These are highly regulated industries. So if you own a CAFO, you already know that you're highly regulated and you're regulated under state and federal regulations. Nothing the county is doing or proposing to do changes any of the state or federal regulations, nor would we be able to, and no, we wouldn't be able to, and we're not attempting to. What we'd like to do and what we're proposing is to follow this state law that was enacted. And what it says is a county can adopt an ordinance citing CAFOs, but then it has limits on how we can cite them. The law has some quirks. For instance, the Wasatch Front is exempt. Every other county in the state can adopt an ordinance citing a CAFO in their county. So if you're in the Wasatch Front, you don't have to comply. If you're in a different county, like we are, then you need to comply with the law if you want to impose regulations on CAFOs or cite them.
And that question has come up from some of the public, like, why is the county even addressing this? And the reason we are is because of the state law that was passed last session, right?
It was passed in 2021.
That basically said that we needed to.
Yeah,
to
if
look
you
at
want to cite them, then you have to pass an ordinance.
Okay.
So here is a picture of all the counties. There are 29 counties, and like I said, the ones along the Wasatch Front have exempted themselves from the state law that was passed a year ago. What we'd like to do is add some definitions to our code. So we would define it exactly as it's defined in state law as an animal feeding operation, and then we would designate large CAFOs exactly as it is in state law. We'd add these to our definitions in Title 10. One more. Exactly as it is for medium AFOs in state law, and exactly as it is in state law for small AFOs. This would conform our code to state law in a way that would be cohesive and be beneficial.
Now, I wonder if any of our producers have any comments on the numbers that you just put up in regards to that. So if you go back to that first slide,
Go back to
the large ones.
Large, one more. There you go.
So basically, it'd be 1,000 or more cattle in a feed yard, and then 700 milking cows. Is anyone here running operations bigger than that? Because I know we have AFOs in now. Some are running close to that when it comes to cattle, but I just...
Well, and they may not meet the CAFO definition either, which we'll discuss even more later, where if you're grazing your own cattle on your own land and then pinning them, this definition does not apply to you.
Okay.
If you're only pinning them and you're pinning them and never grazing them on your own land, then it might apply to you based on the size of your operation. But even if you had this number of animals, if you're running cattle on your own land and then pinning them before market, even if you're pinning them for over 45 days, it doesn't apply to you because you are just a farm or a ranch.
Okay, very good.
Okay, and then we have some maps.
And just to clarify, Victoria, when you say own land, that would also include allotments or other grazed area.
I presume, yes.
Doesn't mean possessed, own title land. You can still have your own allotment.
I presume,
Just
yeah, I
clarifying
would
that for
presume
everybody.
if you had a grazing right, you could utilize that. It's not that clear in the code, but I'm just presuming that. So here's a zoning map. This is our current zoning map. And what this shows you is that we only have to consider the private land in our county that isn't inside a city, and sitla land, which are the blue little tiles that are scattered throughout the county, in consideration of citing CAFO. So, in our county, only about 18 to 19% of our land is private, and the rest is owned by the state or the federal government, or it's inside a city. So we don't have any control over that. Our zoning code doesn't control any of that. So here's our current zoning map. And what we would be considering when we cite a CAFO would be the private land in the county and the blue squares. And that's what the statute says we should consider. Our next map is a little more unclear. It shows our zoning, but I didn't have them superimpose all the federal and state land over the top, so it almost looks like our whole county is ag property when a lot of it isn't zoned by us because it's not owned by us, or in the county outside of a city limit. One more. So this is what I wanted to talk about because I think it's the thing that most people are confused about. A CAFO is not a farm or a ranch that grazes animal on their own land or public land and then confines them in pens to fatten them before market. It's always okay to pen and then sell your own cattle, regardless of your large herd size. And 45 days is if you weren't grazing them on your own land, then you could only pen them for 45 days before you sold them. Medium and small AFOs are not large CAFOs, so they aren't really addressed in the code that was passed by the state last year. And that state law just applies to large CAFOs. So I'm going to say it again because I think it's really the most important thing. If you graze and pen your own animals on your own farm or ranch, and we're presuming also on your grazing permit land, you're not a CAFO, even if you pen them for more than 45 days, even if you have a large number of animals. Many farmers and ranchers are worried about any proposed changes to county ordinance, and I just want to be clear that we aren't attempting to do anything related to farming or ranching operations of this kind. These laws do not apply if you meet the criteria outlined in the code that exempts you. So, go ahead. For the pictures, this is not a CAFO because they're grazing on land, right? Even if you pen them, it's still not a CAFO. Even if you have a lot of animals, it's still not a CAFO. Go ahead, one more. This is a CAFO. So these little piggies go to market, and they never go out and graze on a farm. They're penned for their entire lives. This might be a CAFO if it meets the size requirements in a large CAFO in our definitions. It might be a small or a medium AFO, depending on the size and number of animals. Next picture, this is a CAFO. Again, they're not grazing anywhere, right? They're just penned and then they're going to market from their pen. So, what is it that we're proposing to do? We're proposing to delete our old structure, which doesn't match state law, conform our structure in our code to state law. So, for instance, in our old code, we had definitions for things like dairies, poultry operations, weaner pigs, and we want to conform all that to match the state law definitions of Cafos and Afos. And then what we'd also like to do, every time you pull a thread in a code, it changes lots of other code provisions. So we just have to conform all those. So it's going to appear like we've done a lot, but what we've really done is clean it up so it matches state law. And then we'd like to add a new zone for intensive agriculture. Intensive agriculture, we'd call it the IA zone. And then we'd cite the large CAFOs in the IA zone and then structure the whole code so it's cohesive. Now, in citing a large CAFO, we're allowed to consider certain criteria, and all this criteria is in the state law. You're allowed to, you can't create just a buffer district, but you can consider things to cite them. And what you can consider is how close is a residential zone, how close is a hospital, how close is a park, how close is a school, a church, a commercial enterprise that isn't farming, a municipal boundary. And you can also consider where state and county highways and roads are, what the prevailing winds are, the topography, and also access to transportation, water, and power infrastructure. And those are all the things that we would consider when citing large CAFOs.
So is that what you're suggesting to the Planning Commission to consider, is that you'd basically have this new zone?
Right.
So rather than just being agriculture, if you were going to basically do a pig farm,
A large CAFO.
a large CAFO, I need to keep that clear,
Yeah.
but we know
Or
what,
CAFO.
or CAFO, is that you would apply for a zone change.
Right. And you get in this zone, and then you'd be able to cite the large CAFO in that zone.
Okay.
That's what we are proposing. Obviously, it's not drafted yet because it's partially drafted, but I'm not going to finish that draft until I get feedback from everyone, because I don't want to throw what I'm drafting in the trash.
Yeah.
More than a couple times, anyway.
Yep.
So what we have to do, what we're proposing to do, is create those county code definitions, which are drafted, like we showed you, for large, medium, and small AFOs and CAFOs, create an intensive agriculture zone, and then create a map for CAFO siting, and that would require input from our Planning Commission and elected officials, with input from the public about where those CAFO sightings would be appropriate.
So when you went over the three, big, medium, and large, is the intense agricultural zone only for the large ones?
That isn't drafted yet, so that's up to you.
Okay.
If you wanted to also put medium AFOs in intense agriculture zone, we certainly could draft it that way. And then or you could draft it so they could go in ag 20 zone or another ag zone, right?
Well, we're going to open it up to some of our
Right.
producers that are here, but I'm thinking that the simpler we can keep it, and really keep it kind of narrowed into that very large, type of ag that we're talking about, I think that would make everybody sleep a little better at night.
Right.
So.
And like I said, I think a lot of farmers and ranchers are concerned because it seems like we're doing something major to the code, and a lot of them aren't even affected by the code because they aren't really an AFO or a CAFO. In order to be a small AFO or a medium AFO, you also wouldn't be grazing your stock on your own land and then pinning them. You
Yeah.
would be only pinning them, right? So you'd have to be just pinning and taking them to market.
Yep. Super.
Okay?
Well, great. With that, we've asked, the main reason in having this meeting was to ask our producers to come and give us input. I know early on, Sherry Staley had reached out to me and was wondering about this. And so this is kind of why we've invited you here. I don't know if anybody has comments or questions or feedback. We also have our planning commissioners here as well who will be reviewing this prior to it coming to the county commission. But I don't know if any of our producers, yes, Kelby?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I just want to make one more point. If it's inside a city, we don't regulate it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point, that we're really only talking about the unincorporated parts of the county. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind stating your name just for
Yeah,
Cheyenne.
Kelby Iverson. I farm and ranch in Hurricane. Thanks for all the clarification on that. That was good. And I don't know that I represent everybody here, but I think probably we have a general agreement with the producers that are here. And I don't know that we have anything super negative to say or like against. At least one thing I would say, you guys may know this, maybe you don't know this, but a lot of this state law that came from the Millard County issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody that knows Circle 4 Farms out in the middle of Millard County, this kind of all got blown up, and so the states produced this. I don't know if I understand completely, and maybe you could provide, I don't know this ma'am's name, but a little clarification, but it sounds like to me that the state is asking you to do something,
Yeah.
but it could be as little as almost nothing. You know, I mean, it could be as little as designating in the county that anything that's 20 acres agriculture or bigger can be a CAFO. And so I think from the producer's standpoint, even though a lot, you know, and I would suggest that the only CAFO that even qualifies on a CAFO side might be an enterprise. You know, I don't know that we have anything in the towns and cities as we've discussed, but that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. I think, like you said, Commissioner Iverson, that we would invite you to be prudent, that less is more, because we all know, as one of our agricultural friends said, as we start making regulations, it becomes a slippery slope and it's difficult to stop. And so I'm sure we would all agree that we want nothing to do with designating properties in the county for the smaller facilities, the middle size. They aren't asking you to do that. Why would we do it? And then as far as the big ones, I don't do that right now, and I don't foreseeably see me raising chickens or pigs that would fit into a CAFO. However, if I do want to, I don't want to have to purchase ground in Enterprise or out in other places to be able to do it. So if I understand right, the state is asking you to do something, and I think all of the producers would support you in doing something, but don't tie our hands. I mean, that something could be as small as something like, if it's zone 20 acre agriculture in the county, that we're going to allow you to do it. I wouldn't put a lot of restrictions on the people that are moving into agricultural areas and developing around agricultural areas, because if I still have a 20 acre piece, I want that agricultural protection, even so much as a CAFO, if that's what, and maybe 20 is not prudent for 1,000 cows, but it might be prudent for 10,000 chickens, and so I would, less is more. That's my comment. We want to have that ability and diversity, and certainly if we start talking about AFOs, then I think you'll have this room completely full of people, because those numbers become way smaller. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I don't know that I represent everybody here, but I feel like in general that would be the consensus from your agricultural community, and it doesn't hurt you. I mean, you're still taking every case by case when people come in to do a subdivision development, or when somebody comes to, use their agricultural land, I mean, we want to protect that right to farm.
So now, Victoria, you can maybe answer this. The state law was kind of clear that we couldn't discriminate against animals, right? So
we can't discriminate against type of animals.
Type of animals, yeah, because yeah.
It resulted in the state mandate that you can't discriminate against the type of animal.
Yeah. So I think, Kelby, for almost all of our producers here that are calf cow operations and also, ranchers and farmers, there wouldn't be any, I don't think the county is attempting to do anything to regulate in that case. Unfortunately, we can't say, and I probably even shouldn't say it in this public meeting, that really our concern is pig farms, even though I love bacon. And we were thinking when we first started out and we realized, hey, we need to do something. The state code asks us to do something. And really, as you know, our county is kind of rugged. It's not necessarily, iron county. I joke around, I shouldn't say this. I say, the reason we have Iron, Beaver, and Millard County is to have pig farms. I mean, it actually improves the county to put pig farms there, but I shouldn't say that. That's really wrong of me. So the only part that I was thinking, the agricultural area was Enterprise. And it was interesting when I talked to Mayor Humphreys, who is also a producer. He's like, hey, I don't think that would really fly in our area, because we at 12 miles away still up the valley can smell the pig farms. And so he was a little less excited than I was to maybe make that an area where they could fit in. But your point is well made that look, hey, everybody's feeling the squeeze of regulation, and try not to overregulate if you can.
And I would just say, the state is kind of putting pressure on you guys. Well, if you guys make a decision, guess what cities do? You already know.
Yeah.
Cities look at their ordinances. Oh, the county made this ordinance, and we need to look at this ordinance. And this, and even though I don't know what the mandates are for you guys from the state, but once again, if I have a 20-acre piece and I want to go into the chicken business, I don't want to have to go buy property somewhere else in the county to do it. I want to do it on my own agricultural 20 acres, even if it fits in the CAFO margin. And so you guys aren't being asked, and there's no public outcry like there was in Millard County. That's what stemmed it. You guys aren't being mandated to do anything except designate something. So make it fit within the box that still allows agriculture producers to grow their businesses if they choose to. And then if there is a public outcry, then we address it at that point.
Chair, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
I think when they first came into Millard County, the argument was, you'll have tons of jobs, they're high paying, we're so far out there, you won't smell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, and I'm not picking on pigs, I'm just saying any animal operation. Well, not all of those things have come true. And you can go in Milford to that far west side, there's a hotel and a restaurant next to it, and you smell it.
Yeah.
And granted, the wind may be blowing the wrong way that day, but it's not perhaps every day. But I think that when we went over in our planning meetings and trying to figure out first what the regulations are saying, then trying to place it, we were having a hard time finding a place that had transportation, infrastructure, water, whatever, that wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, and that's my second vote. But the issue was, where would we put it in Washington County that doesn't affect a neighboring city, that doesn't have issues related to all those infrastructure needs? We came up with a few little places, but quite frankly, maybe a CAFO would say, well, I don't even want to go there. So remote, but.
I understand that the issue of discriminating the animal.
Yeah.
But if you guys are gonna focus on the pig or whatever, and you can't discriminate the animal, and you're really gonna set boundaries, then all of a sudden you've discriminated against people that own agricultural land in their own on their own property to do chickens.
Well, that brings up a question, maybe Victoria. So originally we had, I think, kind of just an informal discussion that in order to fill the state code, we would designate an area for these very intense CAFOs. But now I think what you're focused on with the Planning Commission is focusing a zone change. So for example, we were talking about when I was a kid, I worked at the turkey farm that is where the turf farm is now in Washington, prior to it being moved up on the hill where it was for quite a few years. And that would have been a CAFO under the definition that we're putting. But it didn't bother the neighbors the same way that, of course, first of all, there wasn't neighbors that close. But it didn't bother the neighbors in the same way that a pig farm would have. But are you saying that when the zone change, all of that can be taken in? You talked about odor and whatnot. So when somebody comes in for a zone change, could they discuss the type of animal that would be in a CAFO operation? Or would that be taboo?
So again, you couldn't say, well, we're not going to give you the intense agriculture zone because you want pigs.
Okay.
What you'd have to do is, so in my mind, the way you would structure it is you would say a large CAFO would go in an IA zone, intense agriculture zone. And then the map that you would adopt would have a general circle where you would cite those. Okay. So only if it's in that circle would they come ask for an intensive agriculture zone, right? Because you'd cite it on a map. You'd say this is where it would be appropriate for a large CAFO. But I don't think you could say, okay, we're not going to give you a zone change because you want pigs.
Okay.
Right.
Very good.
Right.
I think Slade is on. Kelby, do you have anything else?
So I
okay.
I want to reiterate that you guys are not playing to anybody. You're not playing to a developer right now. You're not playing to a farmer. You don't have any issues surfacing right now. You're just simply trying to satisfy the state law, which in my opinion, Farm Bureau standpoint, whatever, we wish that would have never happened, you know. And so as you determine how you're going to satisfy that, looking out for the producers and the people that have that property, you know, less is more. I mean, you can satisfy that law by saying any place that's zoned 5-acre agriculture can have a CAFO. Is that prudent or realistic? Probably not. But identifying certain areas in the county that would make me or another producer have to go purchase that to put a CAFO is certainly not prudent either. And I, like I say, that's my opinion, and I would suspect that most agriculture producers feel that way.
Good
Very
point.
good.
I remember,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Slade,
Yes.
I understand you
comment-
have your hand up, and I'm really impressed that you're able to join by Zoom.
Yeah, well, you're lucky I'm not there in person.
Okay.
If I understand the state code correctly, the only reason you have a mandate is if you want to regulate them. Is that correct?
Cut out a little.
Yeah, you cut out just a little bit. I think you got too excited. You have to.
Yeah. In order, according to the state law, the only reason that you have to a time frame or that you're required to do something is if you want to regulate them, correct? If we don't regulate them right now, then they are just allowed in our county. Is that correct?
I think that is correct. I'm going to
I
defer
think
to
if you-
Victoria.
Yeah, I think if you want to cite them, then you need to pass a law. If you don't want to cite them, then you would not.
Yeah.
So technically, you could do nothing right now, and everything would be just, would allow agriculture to continue. And if somebody decided they wanted to put a chicken farm in their backyard, zoned ag, they could. Correct?
Well, it depends on the zoning, because right now, still, I don't know that we'd allow them in certain zones. If you're in a residential zone, you wouldn't be allowed now.
The problem is, our current code doesn't define things the same way the state code does. So I don't know the answer to that. I think we need to conform our county code to the state code so we would know the answer to that, right? Because we don't define things in the same manner. And so right now you would only be allowed, for instance, to put a poultry operation, and there's different numbers of animals based on how many acres you have for the number of poultry. Same thing with dairy, same thing with weaner pigs. The problem is our code doesn't match the state definitions for small, medium, and large AFOs and CAFOs. And we'd like to conform it so that then it makes more sense.
Slade, you're still there?
Yes.
You know, you're
So-
you're coming in from up above me. It's almost like you're an angelic person right now.
Yeah. Well,
The best response ever.
The county passed a resolution to support agriculture and that we were an agricultural county. I think in order to do that, you ought to stamp our entire county.
It's the Russian.
Oh, is he driving? Oh, very good.
Maybe he's heading this way.
He's
Well,
going around the
well-
S-curve.
Maybe he's cattle driving.
Well, you know, those are some really good points. Sherry, do you want to speak to this issue?
I probably could echo what Slade's saying. I think back on our, Sherry Staley Tate, I don't know if you need that for record, but I think back on our history of where we're founded was off of agriculture. And I want to believe we're an agriculture county. And so what I kind of talked to you about earlier is, and I think what Slade's trying to say as he's cutting in and out is, why do we feel like we need to do, yes, the state wants you guys to decide yay or nay, if you're going to or you're not, but why don't we just continue to be a friend of agriculture, support agriculture? We all like to eat bacon, milk, all the things, and some even small farms produce for down in yogurt or different things. And so as we're, I sit here and kind of giggle about we can't talk about what animal, but I think as we're looking at this, I think case by case, someone comes in and they want to put a CAFO next to, somebody's $1 million homes, the answer would probably be no in a city or in a county. It would just be no, right? I mean, you have that choice. Am I right now? You can say no, right? You can't say no if it's not zoned for that.
Unless we pick a zone and label it as such, they could try to go in right next to that $1 million home.
Okay.
So that's what has me
But
concerned.
they can try. I've seen lots of things turned down at city council.
Right. Don't get me
tried.
wrong. I want to be as free for agriculture as possible. I'm just not sure we want to welcome Jabba the Hutt into our tent.
Well, like I said, I'm all for agriculture, and I'm for.
Me too.
I'm for, I think we've been pretty smart in our state on where we let things go and where we don't. And yeah, if you catch a breeze in the wrong time of day, you can go to Staley Farm and catch the same whiff of manure down there too. But
Which I don't mind, but
yeah,
That doesn't smell like pig barn
I know it
stuff.
doesn't.
Ooh, it doesn't.
No,
I know it doesn't.
yeah.
I know it doesn't. I shared with you when I went to St. George City Council and was really, I didn't have any idea, but the farms that are, or the homes that are agriculture zoned in Bloomington, that those kids there couldn't raise livestock pigs over there. And I was really shocked on that, because it's zoned for agriculture. So there's just a lot of things going on, and I understand what you're trying to do, but I also think, like what I think Slade's trying to say is, and Kelby too, is if, I don't know if that you have to say, this is the place we're going to do it, or you can just maybe switch some of your codes to be more up with the state, update them, but not necessarily pick a spot for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a great comment.
we're very much on the same page, both of us, with that aspect. I just want to emphasize something that I worry about, and that is, it was very well said that we have no skin in this game, really. I don't operate, any agricultural thing, but what has me a little bit worried is that 3 counties, at least, were exempted. And that worries me because they probably were saying, we're so populous, where would you ever put this? And we're kind of headed for a populous area as well, and I don't want that collision to come in where the agricultural operation is foreign-owned or is so big that they fight any legal action that a resident or the county could mount, that they just line up their hundreds of lawyers with their hundreds of millions and we end up losing.
Right.
But what bothers me is that, even though Kelby's right, we aren't the ones proposing this, but somebody did and got the ears of the legislators through lobbying or whatever to say, hey, we want to be able to do anything we want to do in Utah. And it's not necessarily good for the small person, which really our area is built on small agriculture in big numbers. And we're saying we're going to have big agriculture in small numbers. And I'm not so sure I want to allow those conglomerates to come in here and say, Staley's can't do what they want to do, or anybody else.
So,
I
go ahead.
just like echo what Kelby says. So let's remember, when we start doing one thing, then a city follows suit. Well, the county did it, so we're going to do it. It just can snowball and get out of hand too. And that's what I think we're saying, is we don't want that to happen to the small farms, And at the end of the day, in all reality, I think we all like to eat, and that's something that I really stress strongly when we look at anything based on agriculture, There's Slade.
Victoria, could you answer the question that was asked though? What's your opinion on if today, not if any ordinance was passed or anything, but as of today, if somebody wanted to come in and put in a CAFO, what would be the answer if they wanted to get something rezoned right now?
Well, they'd have to right now meet the size requirement of the lot for the number of animals, and that's different in our code structure for dairies, poultry operations, and weaner pigs. And so we don't have any...
Which is not compliant with state law.
We don't have any regulations over the type of definitions of Cafos and Afos that are imposed by state law.
Or by acreage.
Right.
State regulates it. So here's one of my thoughts of Victoria's. I think, first of all, I think most of our producers aren't even covered by this.
I would
most
agree
of
with
them
that.
wouldn't be. And then the second thought is that if, because we have our planning commissioners here, what's your thoughts on just really writing an ordinance that maybe puts definition, because it sounds like we need definition. But then the other thing is that we're really focusing on the definition of a large CAFO. And then just not necessarily address medium to small, because I don't feel that would apply to most people anyway.
Well, your current code structure, I guess you could, the problem, like I said before, is if you have a sweater and you pull a broken yarn, it unravels the whole thing, right? And what we have to do in our code is pull that broken string, and that broken string are our current definitions of dairies, poultry operations, and weaner pigs, and then impose over the top of them small, medium, and large Cafos and Afos. And so you are going to put those in zones, right? Like they are now. A dairy's in a certain zone right now. So you re-plug in a small AFO or a medium AFO into that zone. And because you've pulled the string to get rid of our old definition of a dairy because you want it to match the state law definition by animal
So what
numbers.
zone are they in now? Because I'm thinking that the ordinance was going to cover a new zone, which is the IA zone, right?
Right, but that's where the large CAFO
Yeah.
would be cited, and you can put the other ones in the zones that already exist.
Right.
Ag 20, Ag 10, whatever zones you want them in.
So the change in our ordinance would really only focus on these large ones. And I need to remind everybody, there's a new business model. I don't think it's new, but the business model of Smithfield and Circle 4 is really to have subcontractors build barns and then take and feed the weaner pigs, right?
Right.
And it's a good business model, but it also means that it's really not kind of what Kelby and those of us visualize. So you really could see a landowner that would buy land, build those, and he really doesn't care. And there is kind of a funny story between the county commissioners of Garfield County and Paiute County, is that Garfield went ahead and let some of them come in right next to Circleville. And that's right on the county line. So they were in they were in Garfield County, a long ways from Panguitch, and the county commissioners didn't care, but they were right close to Circleville. Now, the Daltons, it's the Daltons that are running that big dairy, right? They have a big dairy, and they have no problem with having like 10,000 dairy cows, but having a bunch of pigs right there was kind of insulting to Paiute County. So,
It would be my thought, this is what I would think would make sense, is so everywhere there was a dairy before, you just put your small and medium AFOs in there, and then you only are citing the intense agriculture zone for your large CAFOs. And that would be a different zone and a different line item. So when you pull the thread of our definitions for dairies, poultry operations, and they're all in certain zones, you just leave them all in those zones. So it would change what they're defined as, but it would make it better because it would match state law. And then you would just plug them back into the zones where they already exist.
I think the point not think. The point is stated, and I think it's a good point, is as you work with the planning commission, as we look at the ordinance, that less is more, the ability, more freedom, the ability to continue agriculture, which this is. My family's been in agriculture forever. It's the history of the foundation of the county, and that, and Slade made it.
Speak of the devil, here he is.
And I'm just going to pause right there, and I'm going to guess that Slade wanted to finish his comment that the dead zone that he drove.
Yeah.
You got cut off there, Slade. Would you like to finish? Yeah, I'd like to finish. There you go.
Here's the deal. We got to feed all these people that are in our county. And with the agriculture, if you go and start poking it in little holes like this, it's not going to work that good. So it's not going to come in the middle of St. George. We've already got restrictions anyway. So if a guy goes to the state and says, I want a CAFO, there's already regulations put in place there that disqualify him from being in most places that are out of touch anyway, or next to the $1 million house, to the guy that came from California that wants to run our county and doesn't eat beef or chickens or anything like that. But I think the solution is just state that will comply with the state code, whatever that is, and not designate particular spots in our county, just leave our county open, is my opinion.
Now, would you be at all, I mean, if we mostly focused on large and just left the small to medium, would that be somewhat of a compromise?
Yeah, but do you compromise in real freedom? No, you don't.
I just want...
I really think that you're not gonna get any less people in this county, and a good pig farm next to some of them would probably be good. We could chase a few of them out. So yeah. I honestly think that you're not going to have the issue that these other counties are with pig farms, because you don't have the cheap ground like they got.
Yep.
You're already restricted in those matter. What you're gonna end up doing with something like this is the guy that has 10 acres that wants to do some chickens, or the guy that happens to have over 1,000 head of cattle that he wants to operate on. That's the guy that's going to get hurt. It's not these pig farmers you're worried about.
Well, it is, but Slade, don't step away, because I know that my lawyer is going to advise against this, but to me it really is the pig farm, because you're talking about a large corporation whose model is to hire subcontractors, and if we're not going to, first of all, most calf operations like yourself are not even impacted by any of this.
Right.
And then we're just going to go ahead and we're not going to do anything regulating medium to small. We really are kind of focused on kind of that corporate, that very
I understand
large.
that. But say my kids, decide that there's not enough room on the family ranch, right? They want to stay in agricultural. So they decide they're going to start buying calves. And they're going to buy calves just like Bob Holt does up there, and they're going to put them in a feed lot, and they're going to feed them for 90 days. And then they're going to make their money and sell them to the slaughterhouse. They're going to finish them out. So my kids now don't have that option because of what we've done today. Sure, I don't ever plan on having a CAFO, but.
Well, I guess they'd have to have 1,000 plus.
And you look at that like it's crazy, but I got almost 1,000 head in my yard right now.
Yeah, but that doesn't qualify because
I
you're
understand
grazing.
that, but what I'm saying is it's not that big of a number.
Yeah. Well, it's a slippery slope. It is, and I appreciate the kind of the defense of the slippery slope, but at the same time,
Chairman, let me just make one more comment. I apologize, and we appreciate your time.
No, don't apologize. This is why we're here.
And I've lost my train of thought but we got to realize that if the issue is pigs and they won't let you discriminate pigs, then what you guys as a commission should be doing, and all of us should be doing, is allow us to get some legislation to allow us to discriminate against pigs, because that's the place that's wrong here, because I'm the same as my grandpa always said. He used to run turkeys. When turkeys didn't make money, he started running sheep. When they didn't make money, he started running pigs. When Slade's kids can't graze anymore, they're going to start running Cafos. And we do not want our hands tied. And it sounds like to me that you guys are able to do as little as you want, but maybe you're making it bigger than it needs to be. And I think we're passionate about that. I mean, I think of TJ, I don't know if TJ's going to say anything, but TJ's dad built a facility big enough to run several thousand cows. And I know the situation that the Atkins are in right now out on the Arizona Strip. All of us do, because it doesn't rain anymore. And if you can't raise turkeys, then you need to raise pigs. If you can't raise, if a guy can't raise cattle out on the grazing, well, he might, to feed his family, need to have a CAFO right there in Washington City. And I just don't think you guys can leave here. And I appreciate Victoria's, planning and having some ideas and stuff. But it sounds like you can do as little as you. It sounds like there's no state requirement if Slade's explaining it right. And we don't have an issue here today. And if the issue is really the pigs, then let's get Farm Bureau on board. Let's get the lobbying powers on board, and let's get it changed so we can identify we aren't going to do pigs in these areas. But don't designate areas that tie our hands. I can take 5 acres and make a good living. My children can make a good living on 10,000 chickens. But I can't if you guys designate an area that I got to go out somewhere and buy it, and it's not even for sale. The local producers will drive this boat. I don't think Washington County has a threat. What are people coming to Washington County for? They're coming here to build houses. They're not coming here to build CAFOs. I don't think we have a threat of what Commissioner Almquist was talking about, of big corporations coming and buying up property and all the little guys are gone. Our threat is with the little guys trying to stay afloat right now. And if I need to change from cattle to pigs, or if I need to change from cattle to mink, or I need to change from cattle to whatever I got to do to continue to make a living.
Mink are stinky too, so.
Well, then get the legislation. So I think we're looking at this wrong. We don't want to change anything. And if pigs is the issue, let's take it back in our lobbying powers and get it to where we can politically correct discriminate, so we can exempt pigs. And I think you would have a lot more favor with your local agriculture community.
Well, this is a good discussion. Is there somebody else? Stuart.
Stuart Bowler, producer, Dixie Conservation District. And here we go again with another legislative deal. And I certainly agree with what's been said. I'll always defend and promote the right for agriculture in this county. That's what I've done my whole life. That's what I still do, and that's what I intend to be doing for a long time to come. But I think we'd all just have to be very careful, and I certainly in talking to the commissioners, feel this way. You have to be very careful with unintended consequences of meeting the legislation that was passed. We don't want to take anything away from the future generations. And it's easy to look at the big operations. And when I was talking to Victoria on the phone here a while back, and we talked about the CAFOs are rare in this county, but we want the small and the mediums. I don't have good enough glasses to read the PowerPoint that was up there, but I know it's some of those are not very big numbers. And so we just need to be very careful about unintended consequences. And in talking to the three of you, and Mr. Snow and Victoria, we feel that same way, and we certainly want that. We want folks either that are growing up in agriculture to be able to stay in agriculture to some degree, and also those who might be looking at Washington counties. That looks like a great place to raise my family and have livestock, whether it's chickens or beef, whatever it might be. So let's please visit with those of us who are in agriculture. Farm Bureau is a great resource. Our conservation district is a great resource. The private producers are a tremendous resource. We love and we care about this county, and we want the future generations to be able to stay in agriculture here. So that's my comment.
Thanks, Stuart. If anybody wanted to look at my voting record as far as agriculture goes, when I was on St. George City Council or even on the Planning Commission, it was pro-agriculture, and I can state many, many examples. This is my last comment, though. When this was being lobbied for at the state, I don't think anyone ever said these words, what is best for Washington County? They said, what is best for Smithfield? Now, if we can get people organized to say to them, wait a minute, we want something that's best for Washington County and our small, medium, and maybe even our personally large or operations, then great, let's do it. But I don't think they ever said anything about what's right for Washington County. All they said was, what is right for the Wasatch Front? It's not right for them, so we'll exempt us.
Commissioner
Fair point.
Commissioner Snow, do you have anything else?
No. Again, my family's been in agriculture forever. I strongly, vehemently support and defend agriculture. It's something my family still does. My cousins all still ranch, and my family's farm is right across the street from Sherry. So, where I hauled a lot of hay as a kid, and we didn't move any cows there though. But we did where there's now an elementary school, which it makes me sad every time I drive past it. But I think the point of being cautious and moving forward with great prudence is good. And just to clarify, we're not taking any action today. This is a discussion only to learn and to hear from people. This wasn't anybody watching on TV or anything is worried that we're about to take a vote. There is no vote. There's no action, and I'm impressed and pleased that the number of producers that showed up and voiced their opinion that I think is well taken and we need to consider carefully.
Absolutely. Well, the whole purpose in this meeting was just to meet with the producers, also have an opportunity to have planning commission members here and give Victoria some feedback.
I mean, it's good to come up with direction in this meeting. It's a work meeting, right? Like, we've talked about the issues. Is there any change in direction in your minds? Like, can we gear it towards drawing a circle around some of the high-dense areas in the county and leaving the rest of the county open? Like, what, are you still thinking you want to put a map together? What are your thoughts?
So my thought, just in getting feedback, and the other commissioners can speak for themselves, but I'm really speaking to the planning commissioners that'll take this on first, is that I don't think we want to do anything to really focus on medium to small. It's really just the large, and creating that IA zone, that intense agriculture zone. So I hear both you and Kelby and others, you say, less is better, and or nothing is better. So I would say that those would be kind of our two options. Nothing or.
The intense one. I mean, do you have an area you're thinking you would rather have? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Well, in a zone change, basically what they'd have to do is they'd have to come before the planning commission, and then you'd go through your checklist and decide if it was something that you wanted to do.
Leave the county open but require a zone change.
If I'm hearing you right, Victoria, that's what you're saying, is that you would create a definition for large, and if anybody was coming in under that, they would need a zone change to do that rather than your regular agriculture zone.
Right, and in a zone change, you would have legislative discretion where to place them.
Yeah.
And under that scenario, the state has said, adopt a map. I don't know what that map would look like under that scenario if you're going to do it by zone change. Under that scenario,
Do we have to adopt
we
a map?
must or we could.
I'll have to look at that code. Hold on.
Because I'd prefer just leave it to a zone change if they were coming in to meet that definition, and then just leave it.
At that point, you
Right.
can look at the realities of it. If it was open that my 5-acre plot, and I want to put chickens on it, I come in and I'm able to at least apply for a zone change and see if it meets the.
Yeah.
And let's all face it, we could make our own choices here, but this is once again something imposed upon us. And I don't like the fact that they are saying you must create a map, you must create an area.
Well,
I think
it'll
you
see
and
if
I,
we must or if we can.
It says shall.
Shall create.
I'll
Yeah.
create a map.
Yeah.
Well, you shall designate the geographic areas.
That's my
to support them.
point.
Yeah.
But so could we, Victoria, could we then designate the new zone and the map is Washington County, but we have to then, but we get to approve the zone, or is it that we can only designate the zone within certain areas? I mean, what is that?
I don't think that it contemplated what you're asking, so I don't have a good answer.
So I'm ahead of the entire state legislators?
Well, I think that
makes sense, yeah.
It depends what you'd get sued over, kind of. Your lawyers would have to look at that shall and go, well, what can we defend? I mean, under that scenario, you could adopt a map and circle a lot of areas throughout the county where that IA zone would be appropriate, right? And then that would designate out the areas where it wouldn't be appropriate. But that word is a shall.
Facility right now that would hold 1,000 cows. And I promise you, if you create this IA zone, intense agricultural zone, I will not meet the checklist. I've got houses around me that's 40 acres, and I'm not going to meet the checklist. So
But you're in Hurricane, right? Is it in incorporated? Yeah.
I'm just saying, and people
Yeah.
in the county probably ought to, so as soon as they can't run cattle anymore, and they have to start doing it Bob Holt style, like Slade was talking about, I can't do it. I'm not going to meet the qualifications of the new IA zone.
Well, I want to be clear, too, that there's been some discussion about whether cities follow the county or the county follows cities. We have absolutely no legislative control over the zones in cities. What you can do in Hurricane, what you can do in St. George is completely outside our purview. And so us passing something isn't going to make the cities do anything. The cities do whatever they want, and we don't control it. And trust me, inside a city, your ability to run anything is going to be much more restricted than it will be in our county.
We just know that cities follow county, county follows state. It's just kind of a natural big
That has not been my experience.
Usually cities are much more restricted than county.
Much more restricted.
But what I think we're saying is they'll use you for backup.
No.
You do something, they'll say, well, the county, we even push back a little bit, they'll say, well, this is the county, this is the state, and the bottom line is farmers have the right to farm.
I promise you, our city, I know City of Hurricane doesn't have any ordinance, any policy regarding cattle. But as soon as it surfaces, they will, and guess who they're going to look to first? The county, the state.
Just like what's happening.
What does a state regulation say in regards to CAFOs?
About what?
Does it have anything to do with location, proximity to other?
Yes.
You can
It's
get-
already in the state code, so why do we have to create one for ourselves? We don't have to create a code.
Yeah, because you cannot cite a CAFO if you don't have a code. That's why. Because you won't be able to look at any of the criteria that the state has outlined that you can look at if you don't pass a law.
Okay.
That's the problem.
So they can just go wherever they want if you don't pass a law?
Well, not necessarily under our code, because under our code, we have different categories that don't match state law. So I can't answer that unless you have a specific example.
Well, maybe, of course, I'd be curious what state code says opposed to where we would try to go. I'm disappointed that we have to do a map, because then we could just, it'd be a case-by-case zone change.
Right.
And it wouldn't be much different than a lot of other things we do.
Right.
So.
Mr. Chair, so.
Yes, please.
For a couple planning commissioners.
Yes.
The map was a very big concern for us, was you're picking losers and winners at the very beginning. So use Slade as an example. So Vail wouldn't be part of the map, so he could never even apply for an IA zone change because we designated some map, random map. That was a real concern for the planning commission. And you're having the same concern.
Yeah.
So do we just take a risk with a larger map and then just a zone change is, you have a lot of, Victoria, I mean, you have a lot of legislative control over a zone change.
Yes, you do.
And so if the map is larger, they still have to apply for a zone change inside of that map, right?
So could we meet the state definitions, right, to bring our code in compliance with the state definitions of what an AFO and a CAFO is, designate a large area, and then still use legislative discretion as to whether the zone changes is granted, would that bring us in compliance with the state requirements and restrictions that they already have on authorizing a new CAFO?
My guess would be yes. However, as you know, this is a new law. There's no body of law that determines how to apply it.
Yeah.
You know.
Say the simpler way of possibly doing it. For instance, I don't remember what the capital number for chickens were. I know you bring up chickens, but if 5 acres is big enough to meet the capital standard, then less is more. Anything that's zoned agricultural 5 acres can apply for a capital.
Okay, I'm going to read that for you. So layers and broilers using a wet system would be 30,000 or more to be a large CAFO. A dry system would be 125,000 or more.
It's a lot of birds.
Yeah, and then another layer line item for a dry system is 82,000 or more. Turkeys, 55,000 or more. Ducks, dry system, 30,000 or more. So we are talking in the large CAFO about things that might not fit on 5 acres.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kelby, I still think that most of our producers this wouldn't even touch, but I do agree with you that we need to proceed with caution.
Slade, as far as direction, and again, I can only speak for myself, I would want to explore that last question I just asked a little bit more, for what the minimum ability that we would need to do to come in compliance with state definitions, but and then be able to use the state requirements on where to cite them, but not have to draw a restrictive map that would pick the winners and losers, as we already discussed. I'd like to explore that more so we'd have more leeway and more freedom in the future to make those decisions on a case-by-case basis rather than predetermine this area is good and that area is not, because things do change.
Another creative solution that just popped into my mind is you could amend your map. If there became an issue where you thought your map was incorrect or you wanted to be more or less restrictive, you could amend your map.
Very good. Well, I think this has been a good discussion. I want to thank all the Planning Commission members that are here, and all the hard work you do for the county. Is there any other comments? Don't want anybody to come to a meeting and not have the opportunity to speak. Well, with that, I actually think this has been a really productive meeting. I want to just say that Sherry, thank you for convening this meeting, and I'm glad I realized I need to extend an invitation to you a few hours ago, and you made time to come along with the rest of you. That would have been I would have felt really bad if we would have had this meeting for you and you were not here. So at any rate, I do think this has been good feedback, and Victoria, maybe this will save a few drafts into the garbage can as we take a look at things. And so with that, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.